Paris, 1981. A man calmly walks into a neighborhood park, dragging 2 heavy suitcases. It's early morning, the streets are still, and the air carries the chill of dawn. He hesitates near a lake, glancing around to make sure no one is watching, then without a word just throws the bags into the water. But something is wrong. The suitcases are just bobbing around instead of sinking, long enough for a couple nearby to witness what this man is doing, and so they call the police. The man notices them, and he doesn't panic, he doesn't run. He just simply walks away. This is one of the most bizarre true crime cases I have ever read. And the most shocking part of it all is he didn't just get away with it. He became famous for it. So let's go back. Issei Sagawa was a Japanese student studying abroad in Paris. He was very quiet, very smart. He always dressed neatly, and he was very polite. He was the type of guy you would probably just overlook. Born in Kobe, Japan, to wealthy parents, he was surrounded by privilege. But despite his academic achievements and cultural upbringing, there was something deeply unsettling about him. Something no one could quite put their finger on. People who spent time with him said he had this weird energy. He always stared too long, and he never understood boundaries. He was never threatening, he was just a little strange. And then there were the urges long before Paris. Issei Sagawa was consumed by dark fantasies, and even as a child, he was obsessed with wanting to eat someone. Does this sound familiar? He believed that if he consumed someone, he would be able to absorb their strength, their beauty, and their essence. Now, one of his classmates was a young woman named Renee Hartevelt. She was everything he wasn't: outgoing, confident, warm. She spoke multiple languages, loved poetry, and genuinely wanted to help people, including Issei. But she had no idea he was obsessed with her. One day, he invited Renee over to his apartment because he told her that he needed help with a poetry assignment. He claimed that he needed a female voice to better understand the assignment, and she agreed. It was totally innocent on her end. Once she got there, though, the vibes were different. The windows were blacked out, the room was dark, and the poetry book was already open, like he had been waiting. Still, she didn't think anything of it. She sat down and started reading. While she was reading, Issei slowly got up, quietly walked behind her, grabbed a rifle, and shot her in the neck. She died instantly, and what happened next was exactly what he had been fantasizing about for years with Renee. Since childhood, Issei had dark fantasies of cannibalism. He didn't just think of it, he dreamed of it, he planned it, and he genuinely felt guilty about these feelings. But with Renee's body in front of him, he didn't feel guilt. He felt relief. And over those 2 days in that apartment, he wrote about what he was doing, and he photographed her, and he ate parts of her body, both raw and cooked. And he even stored some of her body in the fridge. He later said that he wanted a part of her beauty to become him. Eventually the smell got bad, and he had to get rid of her body. So he chopped her up, stuffed her into 2 suitcases, and he called a taxi. His plan was to go to a nearby park and dump her remains in a lake. But here's the thing, blood is really hard to clean up, and those suitcases, they were leaking her blood. And so when he got to the park, while he was at the lake, a couple nearby saw him struggling, and so they thought something was off about this whole situation, so they called the police. And when the police arrived and they opened those cases, what they saw looked like a horror movie, only this wasn't a horror movie, this was real. So obviously he's caught. He confesses right away, and there's no trial needed, right? Slam dunk? Not even close. France declares him legally insane. And because of how rich and powerful his parents are, he gets deported back to Japan. At this time, the court documents were sealed in France, and Japan couldn't prosecute him, so they just let him go. He was never punished. He was never imprisoned. He became some sort of twisted celebrity, and he gave interviews and wrote books, and he even starred in films about what he did to this poor girl. People found him horrifying, and rightfully so, but another group of people found him fascinating and they loved him, which is why he became some sort of celebrity. So initially, after Issei was caught, he was in custody for a short period of time. But after he was released, he started to gain a lot of attention, and he didn't live in shame. He embraced all of that attention and started to profit off of it. At this point, and behind the scenes, he was actually living a bleak life. All of the attention that he was getting suddenly stopped. All of the publishers that were contacting him, they stopped contacting him because his reputation began to catch up with him. And by this time, his health began to fail. And once his health began to fail, he was penniless and struggling to live off of welfare. He once said in an interview that he believed there were others like him walking among us. People with the same urges, the same fantasies. But unlike him, they hadn't acted on them yet. And maybe that's the most terrifying part of this entire case. Because the man who did the unthinkable was quiet, polite, and completely ordinary on the outside. The kind of person you'd never look twice at. And if someone like that could commit something so monstrous, and then live freely among us for decades, it begs the question, how many more are out there? Issei Sagawa died in 2022 alone and largely forgotten, but not before living out one of the most disturbing post-crime lives ever recorded.